This 6-year-old girl, confined to a wheelchair and ill, marries a much older millionaire, shocking everyone and causing great controversy. But when everyone discovers the reason, they are shocked. Comment what you think is going to happen and subscribe to my channel to support my work. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the 15th floor of the corporate building in the heart of Manhattan, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk where Theo Masters was analyzing documents without really seeing them. His eyes scanned the words mechanically, while his mind wandered to places he preferred to avoid. The wall clock read 5:30 p.m., but to him, time seemed to crawl. The door to his office opened without warning, and Yara Vasconcelos, his COO, entered. With her usual impeccable posture, her heels clicked on the marble floor as she approached, carrying a folder overflowing with documents. "Theo, the Chinese investors just confirmed the meeting for next week. We need to review the merger presentation today," she said, her voice carrying that characteristic tone of urgency. He looked up from the papers, feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion. "Not now, Yara. I have an unavoidable appointment." "Unavoidable? More important than a $3 billion merger?" Her smile faltered slightly, revealing a hint of irritation. "You've been acting strange these past few weeks, disappearing in the middle of the afternoon, cancelling important meetings." Theo stood up, adjusting the Italian suit he wore like armor. "The presentation can wait until tomorrow. I told you I have an appointment." As he grabbed his briefcase and walked towards the door, he could feel Yara's piercing gaze on his back. She wasn't used to being contradicted, especially not by him, who had always put work first. In the elevator, Theo loosened his tie and closed his eyes. The mirrored walls reflected a 38-year-old man who looked 45, with premature grey hairs at his temples and deep dark circles under his eyes that no professional success could erase. The empire he had built from the ground up was now worth billions, but there was an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. 20 minutes later, his black Mercedes pulled up in front of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. The contrast between the luxury of the car and the simplicity of the place did not go unnoticed by the staff who greeted him discreetly. Here, he was not Theo Masters, the tycoon. He was just another visitor. At the reception desk, Maria, the head nurse who already knew him, smiled sympathetically. "She's in the library, Mr. Masters. She spent all afternoon drawing." Theo nodded in thanks and headed down the familiar corridor. His footsteps echoed across the linoleum floors, mixing with the distant sound of children's voices and medical equipment. The smell of hospital disinfectant invariably transported him back 25 years when he walked similar corridors to visit his sister. As he approached the library, he heard a faint cough and the soft sound of pencils on paper. He stopped at the door, watching silently. Lily was in her adapted wheelchair, hunched over a low table. Her brown hair, already thin due to the progression of the disease, fell over her focused face. Even from a distance, it was possible to see that her fingers, already without much strength, held the pencil with determination. Theo's heart ached as he noticed how much thinner she was than the week before. Spinal muscular atrophy advanced relentlessly, consuming her small body, but it couldn't touch that special sparkle in her eyes. "May I come in, Princess?" he asked softly. Lily looked up, and her smile lit up the room. "Theo, you came." The joy in her voice contrasted with the visible effort she made to move. He approached, noticing the drawing she was working on. A figure in a long dress next to a man in a suit, both surrounded by colorful flowers. "What are you drawing?" "It's a surprise," she replied, trying to cover the paper with her trembling little hands. "I'll only show you when it's ready." At that moment, Beatrice, Lily's mother, appeared in the doorway. Her deep dark circles and simple clothes told the silent story of sleepless nights and scarce resources. "Mr. Masters, it's so good you came." Lily has been asking about you all day." "Mummy, look, the prince came to visit me again," exclaimed Lily, her voice weak but full of enthusiasm. Beatrice smiled, but Theo noticed the worry in her eyes. Something was wrong. Before he could ask, Dr. Reynolds, the neurologist in charge of Lily's case, appeared at the door with a grave expression. "Mr. Masters, could you come with me for a moment? We need to talk." Theo felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that tone of voice. It was the same one the doctors used years ago when they talked about his sister. He forced a smile for Lily. "I'll be right back, Princess. Continue your secret drawing." In the hallway, the doctor didn't waste time with preliminaries. "The latest tests weren't good, Mr. Masters. The disease is progressing faster than we expected. Even with all the experimental treatment." Theo raised his hand, interrupting him. "How long?" Dr. Reynolds hesitated, adjusting his glasses nervously. 2 weeks, at most." The world seemed to spin for a moment. Theo leaned against the wall, feeling the same despair as when he was a teenager and receiving news about his sister. History was repeating itself, and again he felt helpless, despite all his power and money. "Isn't there anything we can do? Some new treatment, some research?" The doctor shook his head sadly. "We've done everything in our power. The treatments you funded gave her a few more months of life, but..." Inside the library, Lily's voice called. For Theo, he took a deep breath, composing himself. He couldn't let her see his anguish. Upon returning, he found her still hunched over her mysterious drawing, but her breathing was more labored than before. "Theo," she called in a weak voice, "are you coming to visit me tomorrow too?" "Of course, Princess. I wouldn't miss it for anything." Little did he know that this promise would trigger a series of events that would forever change not only his life, but the lives of everyone around him. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, a figure watched his departure, discreetly taking pictures with a professional camera. Daniel Meyer had found his next story, and it promised to be explosive. The morning began hectic in the newsroom of the Daily News. Daniel Meyer watched the photos on his camera with a satisfied smile. After years of publishing sensationalist stories that tarnished his reputation, he finally had something that could redeem his career. The images showed a powerful businessman secretly visiting a children's hospital. There was a story here that needed to be told. Meanwhile, in the president's office of the Masters Group, Yara Vasconcelos paced back and forth, her high heels marking a nervous rhythm on the floor. The secretary had just informed her that Theo had cancelled another important meeting. "He's gone crazy," she muttered to herself, running her hands through her perfectly styled hair. Just now, with the merger about to happen. At St. Jude's Children's Hospital, Theo was sitting next to Lily's bed, who had been admitted overnight after a respiratory crisis. The monitoring devices emitted constant beeps, creating an anguishing symphony that he knew all too well. "Tell me more about Princess Aurora," Lily asked, her voice almost a whisper. The oxygen tube in her nose did not diminish the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about fairy tales. "She slept for 100 years until her prince found her," replied Theo, holding her fragile little hand. "And when he kissed her, she woke up, and they lived happily ever after," completed Lily, smiling weakly. After a pause, she asked, "Theo, do princesses who go to live in the stars also have the right to a happy ending?" The question hit Theo like a punch to the stomach. He swallowed the lump that formed in his throat, remembering his sister asking similar questions in her last days. "All princesses deserve a happy ending," he replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. At this moment, Oliver, Lily's father, entered the room. His simple teacher's clothes contrasted with Theo's Italian suit, but there was a dignity in his posture that no expensive clothes could buy. "Mr. Masters," he began, embarrassed, "can we talk for a moment?" In the hallway, Oliver showed Theo a stack of medical bills. The health insurance refuses to cover the new medications. I don't know what to do anymore. We've already sold the car, mortgaged the house. Let me help, Theo interrupted. I can resolve this with a phone call. No. Oliver's response was firm. I appreciate everything you've already done for this hospital. I know you anonymously fund various treatments, but I can't accept direct help. I still have my pride. Before Theo could insist, a young nurse, Yasmin Torres, approached hurriedly. Mr. Oliver, Mrs. Baker is asking for your presence. Lily is having another crisis. The three rushed back to the room. Lily was having trouble breathing, her little fingers clutching the sheet tightly as she struggled for air. Beatrice held her, silent tears running down her face. Calm down, princess, she whispered. Breathe slowly like Mommy taught you. Dr. Reynolds arrived quickly, adjusting the oxygen and administering medication. Gradually, Lily's breathing normalized, but she was exhausted from the effort. I want my princess dress, she murmured between shallow breaths. What dress, my love? Asked Beatrice, stroking her hair. For my wedding, like in fairy tales. The silence that followed was deafening. The parents exchanged devastated glances, while Theo felt his heart break into 1,000 pieces. It was the same request that his sister had made, dreaming of moments she would never get to live. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, Theo remained sitting in his office at home, a glass of untouched whiskey in front of him. Her words echoed in his mind, mixing with memories of his sister. On his desk, an old photo showed 2 smiling children, him and Caroline, before the illness. His phone rang several times, but he ignored it. He knew it was Yara, probably furious, with his absence at the important meeting with the investors. For the first time in his life as a businessman, business seemed insignificant. The next morning, he woke up to insistent knocks on his door. It was Yara, holding a tablet with an alarmed expression. You need to see this, she said, extending the device. On the screen, a flashy headline from the Daily News made his blood run cold. Mysterious millionaire makes frequent visits to children's hospital. What's the real reason? The article, signed by Daniel Meyer, was full of innuendo and conspiracy theories, with photos of Theo entering and leaving the hospital. One of them showed him holding Lily's hand through the library window, the angle of the photo turning an innocent moment into something dark. This could destroy everything, said Yara, her voice trembling with contained rage. The Chinese investors are extremely conservative. If this story gains traction, damn the merger, exploded Theo, startling Yara with his vehemence. Do you have any idea what that girl is going through, what her family is facing? You're not thinking straight, argued Yara, recovering her composure. This company employs thousands of people. Are you going to throw it all away because of a child you barely know? Her words hit Theo like a slap. You don't understand, do you? You never would. Then explain it to me, she challenged. Why this sudden interest in a terminally ill patient? Theo walked to his bookshelf and picked up a photo frame that Yara had never noticed before. In it, a girl of about 12 smiled from a hospital bed, connected to devices similar to those that kept Lily alive. This is Caroline, my sister, he said, his voice choked. She had the same disease as Lily. She passed away at 13, dreaming of a princess dress she never got to wear. Yara was silent, finally understanding, but her expression soon closed again. I'm sorry about your sister, Theo, but you can't let the past compromise everything we've built. We built? He questioned with a bitter smile. You arrived when the company was already consolidated, Yara. You don't know what it's like to build something from scratch, much less understand what it's like to lose someone you love. At that moment, his cell phone vibrated with a message from Yasmin. Come quickly. Lily worsened overnight. She keeps asking for you. Without saying anything else, Theo grabbed his keys and left, leaving Yara alone with her concerns about the merger. Little did he know that, at that very moment, Daniel Meyer was preparing his next article, one that would turn the lives of everyone involved into a true nightmare. When Theo arrived at the hospital that morning, he found the atmosphere different than usual. Employees whispered in the corners, casting furtive glances in his direction. At the reception desk, Maria avoided his gaze, something that had never happened before. Yasmin was waiting for him at the door of Lily's room, her young face marked with worry. "Mr. Masters, I need to warn you. The newspaper article. Some parents of other patients are questioning your visits." Inside the room, Beatrice was cradling Lily, who was sleeping a restless sleep. Oliver was sitting in a corner, holding a copy of the Daily News. His face showed a mixture of anger and disappointment. "How could you?" he asked, his voice trembling, "turning my daughter's illness into a media circus?" "Oliver, it's not what you're thinking," began Theo, but was interrupted by Beatrice. "Isn't everything we're going through enough? Now we have reporters calling, neighbors asking questions. Even the school where we used to teach is being harassed by journalists." Before Theo could defend himself, Lily woke up, coughing. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. "Theo, you really came! I was so afraid you wouldn't come anymore." The innocence in her voice made the adults swallow their grievances momentarily. Theo approached the bed, noticing how paler she was than the day before. "Of course I came, Princess." "A promise is a promise. Did you bring more stories?" she asked, her voice weak but hopeful. "Today—" "No, honey," Beatrice interrupted, giving Theo a meaningful look. "You need to rest." In the hallway, Dr. Reynolds was waiting to talk to Lily's parents. Theo found himself alone with Yasmin, who was organizing medications on a tray. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, curious about the young nurse's loyalty. Yasmin stopped what she was doing, her eyes filling with tears. "My younger sister had leukemia. In her last days, all she wanted was to feel special, like a princess, but we didn't have time." She wiped her eyes quickly. "What you're doing for Lily is something every child in that situation deserves." At that moment, Theo's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Iara. "Emergency board meeting in 1 hour. Don't you dare miss it." He put away the phone, ignoring the message. But soon another notification arrived, this time a link to a new article by Daniel Meyer. The title made his stomach churn. "Millionaire plans wedding with 6-year-old girl. How far does the perversion of the powerful go?" "Oh my God," whispered Yasmin, reading over his shoulder. "How can someone twist something so pure?" In the room, they heard Lily having another coughing fit. Theo rushed inside, finding her even more breathless than before. "I want my princess dress," she murmured between gasps, "before I go to the stars." Oliver and Beatrice exchanged devastated glances. Dr. Reynolds, who had just entered, made a discreet gesture, calling the parents to talk. In the hallway, his words were direct and painful. "The condition has worsened faster than expected. We don't have 2 weeks anymore, maybe not even 1. Beatrice stifled a sob, while Oliver hugged her, trying to stay strong. Theo, who had heard everything, felt the same despair as when he lost Caroline, but this time something inside him rebelled against the helplessness. "What if," he began, an idea taking shape. "What if we made her dream come true? A Princess Day, a symbolic ceremony." "Are you crazy?" Oliver interrupted. "After this absurd article, they'll accuse us of child exploitation." "We don't need to do anything grandiose," Theo argued. "Just something small, intimate, in the hospital garden." "The garden is closed for renovations," informed Yasmin, who had joined the conversation. "I can fix that in a day," Theo guaranteed. "I have resources. I can transform that space." "We don't want your money," Oliver exploded. "Haven't you caused enough problems already?" "Honey," Beatrice intervened softly. What if it's her last wish?" The silence that followed was heavy. Inside the room, they could hear Lily humming a princess song softly, her voice interspersed with difficult breathing. "One day," Oliver finally conceded. "No press, no extravagances, just something to make her smile one last time." Theo nodded, already mentally planning how to accomplish everything in such a short time. But upon leaving the hospital, he realized it wouldn't be so simple. A small group of protesters was forming at the entrance, holding signs with accusatory sayings. In his office, the situation was no better. Yara was waiting for him with an expression that mixed triumph and regret. "The board met without you," she announced. "I've been appointed interim president. You are temporarily suspended, pending a psychological evaluation." "You can't do this," Theo growled. "It's already done. And my first action will be to cancel all secret funding to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We can't maintain ties with a place involved in a scandal of this magnitude." "They're sick children, Yara. How can you be so cruel?" "Business is business. Theo, you taught me that." As he left the office that was no longer his, Theo received a call from Yasmin. His heart froze when he heard the nurse's words. "Mr. Masters, come quickly. Lily is having a severe crisis. She only calls for you, wants to know when her Princess Day will be." In the elevator, Theo made a decision. No matter the cost, he wouldn't lose another person he loved without fulfilling her last wish. Even if it meant losing everything he had built. What he didn't know was that Daniel Meyer was watching his departure from the building, camera in hand, planning his next bombshell headline, and that this story was about to take a turn that no one could predict. The news of Theo's removal from the presidency of the Masters Group quickly spread through the company's corridors. Longtime employees who had followed his journey from the beginning couldn't believe it. In the finance department, a pile of documents awaited Yara's signature, all related to the immediate cut of funds for philanthropic projects. At St. Jude's Children's Hospital, the situation was even more tense. Yasmin watched helplessly as families of other patients whispered and pointed to Lily's room. The sensationalist headlines had transformed an act of kindness into something perverse, poisoning even the welcoming atmosphere that had always characterized that place. "How can they be so cruel?" she murmured to Maria, the head nurse, as they prepared medications. "We've known Mr. Masters for months. We know who he really is." Maria sighed heavily. "People see what they want to see, Yasmin. And that journalist, he doesn't care about the truth." At that moment, Daniel Meyer was sitting in his office in the newsroom, rereading his latest article with a satisfied smile. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Other outlets wanted exclusivity. Politicians were asking for information. His career was finally taking off again. "Meyer," called his editor, "great work. The website's audience has tripled since your first article on the case." But something bothered Daniel. A small voice in his conscience questioned whether the price of success wasn't too high. After all, he was destroying reputations, affecting the life of a sick child. His reverie was interrupted by an anonymous call. The voice on the other end was familiar, an employee of the Masters Group offering more compromising information about Theo. In the hospital, Lily worsened with each passing hour. Her lungs struggled to function, and even talking had become an immense effort. Even so, her eyes maintained that special sparkle when she talked about her dream. "Mommy," she whispered with difficulty, "I want a blue dress, like Cinderella's." Beatrice held her daughter's hand, trying to contain her tears. Oliver, leaning against the window, watched the commotion outside. The number of protesters had increased, some carrying signs with absurd accusations. "We need to get Lily out of here," he said. "This whole circus is affecting her recovery." "Recovery?" questioned Dr. Reynolds, who had just entered the room. His expression was grave. "Oliver, Beatrice, we need to be realistic. Lily isn't going to recover. The question now is to make her last days as comfortable as possible." The silence that followed was interrupted by knocks on the door. It was Theo, carrying a mysterious box. Despite the hostile looks from the parents, he approached Lily's bed. "I brought something special for you, Princess," he said, opening the box carefully. Inside was a delicate tiara, studded with small stones that sparkled under the fluorescent light of the room. Lily gasped in surprise, her eyes wide with enchantment. "It was my sister's," explained Theo, his voice choked. "She was a princess, too, you know? And now it's yours." Carefully, he placed the tiara on Lily's thin hair. For a moment, the disease seemed to disappear. She was just a 6-year-old girl living her fairy tale dream. "Thank you," she whispered, a weak smile illuminating her pale little face. "Now all that's missing is the dress and the prince." At that moment, Yasmin burst into the room, breathless. "Mr. Masters, there's a woman outside and she's causing a terrible commotion." It was Yara, dressed impeccably in her executive suit. She gestured to journalists who had gathered at the entrance of the hospital. "The Masters Group does not condone questionable behavior," she declared to the cameras. "As interim president, my first act was to sever any ties with this institution." Theo felt his blood boil. He left the room determined to confront her, but was stopped by Yasmin. "Wait," asked the nurse. "I have a better idea. Let's find Daniel Meyer, the journalist who's destroying my life." "Why?" "Because he needs to know the real story. He needs to see Lily, understand what's at stake. If he published the lie, maybe he can publish the truth too." Meanwhile, in the room, Lily had another coughing fit, this time more violent than the previous ones. The heart monitor began to beep frantically. "Code Blue!" shouted Dr. Reynolds, initiating emergency procedures. Beatrice was pulled away from the bed while the medical team worked. Oliver hugged her tightly, both watching helplessly as their little princess fought for her life. In his office, Daniel received another anonymous call, but this time the voice was different. It was a young nurse, telling a story that made his heart ache. "Come see for yourself," said Yasmin. "See what your words are causing. See the truth that you distorted." In the newspaper parking lot, Daniel found Theo waiting for him. There was no anger on his face, just a deep sadness that the journalist recognized. It was the same look he saw in the mirror since he began publishing sensationalist stories. "Why are you doing this?" asked Theo simply. Daniel hesitated. The easy answer would be to talk about his career, about audience, about the duty to inform. But there was something in the situation that prevented him from using his usual excuses. I didn't know," he finally admitted. "I didn't know about your sister, about Lily's illness." "Now you will," replied Theo. "Come with me to the hospital. See with your own eyes what is really important in this story." As they got into Theo's car, their cell phones vibrated simultaneously. It was a message from Yasmin. "Come quickly. Lily is very bad. The doctors don't know if she will make it through the night." The hospital was plunged into a heavy silence when Theo and Daniel arrived. The protesters had dispersed with the arrival of night, leaving only traces of their presence. Torn posters and fallen banners sadly decorated the entrance to St. Jude's. Yasmin was waiting for them at the reception desk, her white uniform stained with medication and tears. "We managed to stabilize her," she reported in a low voice, "but it was very close." Daniel watched everything with different eyes now. The hospital environment, which he had previously seen only as a setting for his sensationalist report, revealed itself in its true essence, a place of pain, hope, and above all, humanity. In the hallway leading to Lily's room, they found Dr. Reynolds talking in serious tones with Oliver and Beatrice. The doctor held a clipboard with recent exams, his expression darker than ever. "The question is no longer if, but when," he said gently. "We need to think about comfort now. Every moment is precious." Upon seeing Daniel, Oliver advanced furiously. "What is he doing here? Wasn't it enough to destroy our peace? Does he want to record my daughter's last moments for his next headline?" Beatrice held her husband's arm, her strength already at its limit. "Oliver, please. Lily needs calm now." Lily's weak voice came from inside the room. "Daddy, is everything okay?" The sound of that innocent little voice seemed to melt all the tension. Oliver took a deep breath, wiping away furtive tears. Daniel, for the first time, saw the true weight of his actions stamped on the faces of that family. Inside the room, Lily was propped up on a mountain of pillows. The tiara that Theo had given her still rested on her thin hair, shining under the soft light of the lamp. Despite the tubes and monitors, she smiled upon seeing her prince. "Theo," she called with difficulty, "did you bring more stories?" "Today I brought something different, Princess," he replied, sitting next to her bed. "I brought someone who needs to meet you." Daniel approached hesitantly, his notepad forgotten in his pocket. There was no way to hide behind sensationalist words now. He was face to face with the truth that he had distorted so cruelly. "Hi, Lily," he said softly. I'm a friend of Theo's." "Do you also know princess stories?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with childlike hope. At that moment, something inside Daniel broke. Years of journalistic cynicism, of the incessant search for impactful headlines, crumbled before the purity of that question. "Actually," he replied, his voice choked, "I came to learn about princesses from you." As Lily told her favorite version of Sleeping Beauty, interrupted occasionally by coughing fits, Yasmin took the opportunity to take Daniel to her office. There she showed him files and files of documents. "See this," she pointed out. "These are the records of all the experimental treatments that Mr. Masters funded anonymously, not just for Lily, but for dozens of children. Some survived thanks to him." Daniel browsed the documents, his vision blurred by contained tears. Photos of smiling children, thank you letters from parents, medical reports showing improbable recoveries. "Why did he never disclose this?" he asked. "Because some things are too sacred to become headlines," Yasmin simply replied. Back in the room, they found Lily sleeping, exhausted after telling her story. Theo was carefully adjusting the tiara on her head, while Beatrice held her fragile little hand. "She asked again about the princess dress," whispered Beatrice. "About her special day." Oliver, who had been silent until then, turned to Theo. "How long would it take to organize something? Something small, dignified." "With the right help," replied Theo, looking meaningfully at Daniel, "we could make it happen tomorrow." The journalist got the message. He picked up his phone and started making calls. First to his editor, demanding space for a full retraction, then to contacts who could help make a little princess's dream come true. But not everything would be so simple. In the middle of the night, while preparations were running discreetly, Iara arrived at the hospital, accompanied by lawyers and security guards. "The board has voted," she announced coldly. "All of the Masters Group's accounts have been frozen, including donations to the hospital, and there is a restraining order preventing Theo from approaching this location." Dr. Ricardo, who had just left Lily's room, confronted Yara with a furious calm. "Do you know how many children depend on these resources? How many lives are at stake?" "It's not my problem anymore," she replied, but something in her voice betrayed a hint of hesitation. It was then that Yasmin, who was watching everything, had an idea. She ran to her office and returned with a folder. "Before making any decisions," she said, handing the folder to Yara, "you need to see this. Inside was an old photo, yellowed with time. It showed a girl in a hospital bed, hugging a teddy bear. Beside her, a woman held her hand, crying. "Where did you get this?" asked Yara, her mask of coldness crumbling for the first time. "In the hospital's old archives," replied Yasmin. "The girl is Caroline, Theo's sister, and the woman is you, isn't it? You were also a nurse here." The silence that followed was deafening. Yara stared at the photo, memories long buried resurfacing. I had forgotten," she murmured. "Or maybe I chose to forget. It was my first job as a nurse, taking care of Caroline. After she passed, I couldn't anymore. I changed careers, buried that part of my life." At that moment, a high-pitched sound from the heart monitor cut through the air. The medical team rushed to Lily's room, leaving Yara paralyzed in the hallway, the photo still in her trembling hands. "Code Blue!" someone shouted. "We need to act fast." The night would be long, and the fate of many lives, not just Lily's, hung by a thread. Dawn found St. Jude's Children's Hospital in a different silence. It wasn't the heavy silence of the night before, but something almost reverent. Lily's crisis had been controlled by a hair, and now she slept. Her breathing, still irregular but stable. Yara had remained at the hospital, sitting in a chair in the hallway, the old photo still in her hands. Her impeccable executive clothes contrasted with her face marked by a sleepless night. The lawyers and security guards she had brought had long since left, leaving her alone with her memories. "You were different back then," said Theo softly, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. He offered one to her, who accepted without words. "I believed in different things," she finally replied. "After Caroline, after seeing so many children pass, I built walls around my heart. I convinced myself that success and power were the only things that mattered." In Lily's room, Beatrice gently combed her daughter's thin hair, preparing her for her special day. Caroline's tiara shone on the bedside table, waiting for its moment. "Mommy," whispered Lily, her eyes half closed, "I dreamed that I was dancing with the prince in a garden full of flowers." Beatrice swallowed the lump in her throat. "It wasn't a dream, my love. Today is your special day, remember?" Yasmin entered the room carrying something covered by a white cloth. Her eyes shone with contained excitement. "I brought a surprise," she announced, revealing a delicate light blue dress, specially adapted to accommodate the tubes and monitors. "The seamstress worked all night to make it perfect." Lily's eyes widened with enchantment. "It's just like Cinderella's." In the hallway, Daniel worked frantically on his laptop. His retraction wouldn't just be a journalistic correction, it would be an apology to society, a reflection on the power and responsibility of the media. Dr. Reynolds approached the group, his expression serious but hopeful. "She's having a good moment now. If we're going to do this, it has to be today." The hospital garden, normally closed for renovations, had been transformed overnight. Employees, patients and their families worked voluntarily, moved by something greater than themselves. White and blue flowers decorated every corner, small lights twinkled among the foliage, and a modest arch of flowers marked the site of the ceremony. "I can't believe I helped try to stop this," murmured Yara, watching the final preparations. "You can still help make it happen," replied Theo. She stared at him for a long time before picking up her phone. "Hello? Yes, it's me. Immediately cancel the blocking of the Masters Group's accounts and schedule an extraordinary board meeting for tomorrow. I have an important announcement to make." The news spread quickly through the hospital. The little Princess Lily's dream would be fulfilled. Patients who could move were brought to watch. Employees arranged last-minute flowers, and even some of the former protesters, touched by the true story published by Daniel that morning, came to offer support. At 3 in the afternoon, everything was ready. Oliver, wearing his best suit, the same one he wore at his wedding with Beatrice, waited to lead his little princess through the small, improvised corridor among the flowers. Inside the room, Yasmin and Beatrice put on the finishing touches. The blue dress fell perfectly, the tubes and monitors discreetly incorporated into the design. Caroline's tiara completed the look, transforming a little warrior into a true princess. "Are you ready, Your Majesty?" joked Yasmin, holding a small bouquet of white flowers. Lily smiled, and for a moment all the pain and tiredness seemed to disappear from her little face. "Now I can go live in the stars happy," she said softly. In the garden, Theo waited under the arch of flowers. He wasn't wearing a prince costume. His dark suit was enough. The simplicity of the moment demanded authenticity, not theater. The small procession began to the sound of soft music, played by a volunteer violinist. Oliver wheeled Lily's chair slowly, silent tears running down his face. Beatrice walked beside him, holding her daughter's hand. When they reached the Arch of Flowers, a volunteer chaplain from the hospital began a simple and moving ceremony, talking about love, hope, and the magic of special moments. "Theo," called Lily at one point, her voice weak but clear, "promise that you will continue to be my prince, even when I'm in the stars." "I promise," he replied, kneeling next to her chair. "And I also promise that I will take care of all the other princesses who need help, in your honor." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Yara, who was watching everything from afar, approached with an envelope in her hands. "Lily," she said, her voice choked, "I also have a gift for you and for all the other children at the hospital." It was a document formalizing the creation of the Princess Lily Foundation, which would be funded with part of the profits from the Masters Group, ensuring treatment and research for children with rare diseases. "And there's more," continued Yara, looking at Theo. "The board will meet tomorrow to return your presidency. This company was born from a dream of making a difference, and that's how it should continue." The ceremony continued, marked by moments of deep emotion. When the chaplain declared Lily an official princess of St. Jude's Children's Hospital, everyone present applauded, many through tears. Later that night, Lily slept serenely in her room, still wearing her princess dress and tiara. Her parents, Theo, Yara, Yasmin, and Daniel, talked in low voices, sharing stories and hopes. "You know," said Daniel, looking at his laptop where he was finishing his article, "I spent years looking for the story that would change my career. I never imagined it would change my life first." 3 days later, Lily passed away peacefully. In her sleep, her little face still holding the smile of the happiest day of her life. But her legacy was just beginning. The Princess Lily Foundation became a reference in treatment and research of rare childhood diseases. Theo, back in the presidency of the Masters Group, ensured that a significant part of the profits was destined for social causes. Yara found a new purpose directing the foundation, reconnecting with the idealistic nurse she had once been. Daniel became a journalist dedicated to telling true and important stories, especially about health and social causes. Yasmin was promoted to coordinator of the humanization program at St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Oliver and Beatrice, although forever carrying the pain of loss, found solace in helping other families facing similar situations. They became advisors to the foundation, transforming their experience into support for other parents. In Theo's office, the drawing that Lily had made, him and her holding hands, surrounded by other children, occupied a place of honor. Next to it, the photo of Caroline and the tiara that now symbolized two special princesses reminded him daily that the true happy endings are not those of fairy tales, but those that we build through love, understanding, and the ability to make a difference in the lives of others. and on clear nights, when the stars shone particularly brightly over St. Jude's Children's Hospital, the staff liked to say that there was a very special princess taking care of all the children from above, ensuring that their dreams, however simple, had the chance to come true.